Howdy, folks. Kevin here for Ridge Runner Blades. Welcome back to the Table Full of Knives podcast. I'm here with my friend and awesome bladesmith, Daniel Winkler. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me again.
So, Daniel, what I thought we would talk about on this episode is really a lot of the questions that we get both online and in store. And I've got a pretty good list of those, so I hope you got a few minutes to spend with us.
You bet. You go right ahead. I'm constantly writing down questions and answers, so when I'm not available, the staff that answers the phone can help out. So have at it, and we'll see what we got.
Well, hopefully this will take a little bit of that burden off of you, but probably one of the biggest questions that we get still to this day is in reference to a video that we done probably a year or more ago about bringing back a discontinued knife as our exclusive. And what they want to know is, where's that at?
I wish I could say exactly. I can't. Fortunately, on one hand, and unfortunately on the other, our order backlog is such to where we haven't been able to devote very much time in new product development. And this has been going on for the past year and a half to 2 years. When you're backlogged anywhere from 5 to 10 months on existing products, justifying to your customers, well, we're going to be backlogged another month because we have to take time out to develop a new model, is a little bit hard to explain sometimes. So on yours, I've got a list of folks that we know in the industry. You're very close to the top of the list on the next project to do the development on. And so I probably have right now at least 4 years worth of that kind of project ahead of us because we have to limit it and schedule it in with our normal production. So we have talked about it in the design, and we're going to do a variation on a retired model that we produced for several years called the Recon, but it'll be its own unique piece. It'll just have some design characteristics that are based on that particular Recon, which was more of a military style knife. And the Recon was a co-design between Kevin Holland and myself, and Kevin is very well known in the Tier 1 community. So I'm not sure exactly when, but you're up close to the top of the list right now, and as soon as we can justify the time to do new development, which is pretty extensive, because when you do a new product, it's not just, let's make out a new knife and cut it and run it through. When we do the design for it, we not only have to do the knife design and the prototyping, we have to develop the handles, the pin locations, the sheath carry systems, the tooling holders, the programming for engraving, the programming for all the computer equipment that is part of today's manufacturing process. So it gets very involved, but it's coming.
Yeah, so a lot of folks don't realize all that goes into that behind the scenes, Daniel. I mean, a lot of folks think that you've got some magic computer program. It figures out all the problems. You hit send, and then it pops out. I mean,
well, and something else that people don't have the full understanding of what it takes to do this. We still get calls on a regular basis, because my history and Karen's history was we did one-of-a-kind pieces one at a time for 25 years. And we still have people that call now and say, well, when's Daniel going to get to grinding my blade? Not understanding that I rarely grind blades anymore unless I'm doing product development and training. We have a staff of about 25 people that specialize in the different areas. That some are blade grinders, some are handlers, some work in the sheath department, some work with the computer-controlled lasers and water jets and that sort of thing. So it takes a lot of people to make this happen, but everything that happens is done in a way that I would have done it or would do it right now, based on making sure we have the performance and the design capabilities that we do.
Well, I've been up here several times, Daniel, and I can definitely attest to that fact. I mean, you have got your hand on the pulse of what's going on out there. I can't tell you how many times we've been talking about something. Someone comes out, hey, Daniel, we've got this problem. Okay, I'll be right out to solve it. And then a couple of minutes later, there you go. So You are definitely telling them the truth right there.
Well, I'm a very hands-on sort of person, and fortunately, we have some great people out here that are learning to help me out with what I do, and I plan to continue being directly involved with all aspects of production right on and on. But it's nice to have other folks that can kind of fill in for me when I'm doing things like a podcast.
Yeah, there you go, like this. So, and we're glad to have you. So,
Yeah.
So to bring that to a close, guys, just stay with us. Daniel did tell me in private before the podcast that it wouldn't be this year. So don't look for it for the rest of this year. So we'll shoot for 2024. On to the next question, sir. What problems did you want to solve with the new operator sheath? I know you had just introduced that and then sort of gave myself and my gentleman at the shop a demonstration, and it's really cool. So,
well, from the beginning, the operator was designed as an alternative to a double-edged combat knife. Again, Kevin Holland had a hand in the development of that design through his professional use. And so when we developed it with two different sheaths. One, which was the primary, was sort of a inside the waistband, minimalistic lined thermoforming plastic sheath. People call it Kydex or Bolteron. We've used both. But then that's not a well-adapted sheath to an everyday user. And so we used our sheath that we originally developed for the Blue Ridge Hunter because the operator fit in it well. And since we're thermoforming each knife to each sheath, it operated, it felt, and worked pretty well. Quite frankly, I was never really happy with that sheath design for that knife, but I didn't really have anything else better to go on until recently, and we started working with DeSantis Leather. And DeSantis worked with us on developing a new sheath for the operator, and it's one that is molded leather. The clip is located so you can wear it outside the waistband like most sheaths are worn, or you can actually stick it in a front pants pocket with a clip on it to make it very unobtrusive in your attire, but it works very well because it goes up, it covers most of the handle, so you've got access to draw it, but it's molded so the knife's not going to fall out. So I'm very happy with that particular sheath design, and now it is offered as the primary with the operators, but should somebody has an operator on order prefer the older sheath, we're still going to offer the inside the waistband minimalistic sheath as a separate order. Those will be available.
So did I hear you say that that's going to be the new standard of living in the SD1, SD2, or is that just on the operator?
No, we're also right now, we developed one of the same style to fit the SD1 and SD2. Again, the minimalistic Kydex sheath or thermoforming plastic Bolteron sheath doesn't fit everybody's needs, and so we'll have a choice. You can order it. The standard will be the new leather pouch type sheath with the SDs as soon as we get them in, and we're probably a good month and a half out on those being actually available. Although the design has been approved, the order's been placed, it takes a while to get the manufacturing done.
Sure.
The sheaths, by the way, the leather covered sheaths are one of the only aspects of Winkler knives that we do contract out manufacturing for. All the knife work and all the axe work we do here in-house, from cutting out to the final sharpening, to where the sheath work, we started off making sheaths, and we still make some of our own, the minimalistic sheaths ourselves and the axe carriers. But quite frankly, there are professional holster and sheath manufacturers out there that can do a much better job than we can in-house. And so as long as it's not detrimental to any aspect of our performance or appearance, finish of the knife, we're good to go with that. So sheaths is something that we are branching out into other avenues, and DeSantis has been very good to work with, and we're real happy with what they've come up with to fit our knives.
Yeah. So look for that new sheaths, guys, for both the operator SD1, SD2. They are super cool, and
right.
Daniel was kind enough to share that with us. Are there any other blades in your sights for sheath upgrades besides those?
Just right now, the only thing we're considering for that is we have another new model that's been in process of development. Recently we retired the field knife, and before that we retired the camp knife. And so we're working on development of a replacement to kind of blend those two for the person that needs a larger outdoor field type knife for batoning and camp chores and splitting and those sort of things. So we've worked with DeSantis on the prototyping. We haven't made any of this replacement knife yet, but I have made some models to get the process started. So hopefully sometime, probably as your knife in 2024, we'll have that knife as a new model we will present. But if you'll know, because if you sign up for our newsletter on our website, we do any inaugural releases or news about new products, we'll do that. And our newsletters are not like a lot. You're not going to get a lot of junk mail that we're going to hit you up every 3 times a week. I think since we started doing it, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I think we've done 3 newsletters maybe. We only do it when it's something really important coming up or we want to reintroduce a new product.
So we can put a link to that in the description of this video so that they can go and sign up for your newsletter just for things like that.
Yeah, no,
Sure.
If you go to our website, something's going to pop up asking you if you want to sign up for the newsletter. So just fill it out, and you're not going to get overrun with a lot of emails from Winkler Knives. I guarantee you that. We, 1, don't have time to do it unless it's necessary, and 2, would never be pushy about pushing our products at all. I mean, we have dealers that are very good at promoting us in areas we don't get to, so we would kind of rely on you folks at Ridge Runner and some of the others to do that.
We appreciate that. You had touched on earlier, Daniel, that lead time was out for, say, 4 or 5 months.
Right.
Do you see that changing any in the near future? Or so if someone goes to your website today, orders a knife, they're looking at a minimum of 5 months. Is that a fair statement?
About 4 months.
About 4 months.
And it may go out to 5 months. On most items, on the front spike R&D Hawks, you're looking at 10 to 12 months on them, just because there is such a rush on those products right now and has been for a couple of years. And quite frankly, that is the most difficult thing we make. It's very difficult to get those right. So, yeah, and as far as shortening our lead time, we are working on that constantly by improving our production methods and the training of our staff. Now, there are ways that we could really cut down on that by shortcuts and cutting either quality or cutting design features, that we do that are different than most other manufacturers. But quite frankly, I'd rather have the lead time out there than compromise our functionality or what we're known for in any regard. So our hope is to improve. We're getting ready to do some major renovations in our manufacturing, moving some equipment around and adding a little bit more here and there just to have the production flow better. And so we're constantly working on that. We got major projects going on with that now. We've got more space to work with than we've had in the past. And
I noticed he was adding on back
right,
there to that one building.
And so we're
we
doing
speak,
that
actually.
right
Yes.
now. They're working on it today, in fact. So we hope to streamline our manufacturing process, and all that will work together into lessening our delivery times. But a lot of that is subject to the orders we receive through the public. And so it's kind of, part of it is out of our hands. We've done some things to limit that by eliminating third-party sales, and we do very little exporting of our products now. We used to have quite a few dealers in Europe and Asia, and we've eliminated, or in the process of not eliminating that 100%, but only to just maybe a couple of people that are hitting in areas that we need to stay active in. And then we have not taken on any new dealers in over 2 years because we have a long list of other stores like yours that would like to become dealers. We first, a couple of years ago, put in that we're not taking on any new dealers that didn't have a storefront, just straight internet dealers. I think we're pretty well covered there. And not to discriminate against them, we appreciate those too. And the sales, we don't limit like your ability to sell online, but having a storefront where people can actually pick up and handle the knives is very important to people appreciating the differences in Winkler knives and the other things that they have to choose from. So we're trying to focus on getting the knives to the consumer in the most efficient way possible by having limited dealers that are very supportive of what we're doing, and also eliminating some of the impersonal third party sales that we've had for so much in the past.
Yeah. Well, let's go back just a little bit, Daniel, because you touched on it just very lightly. You said you eliminated a lot of the third-party sales. So that is one of the big questions that we get is, I see this Winkler knife on XYZ third-party website. Is that legit? Is that something that you allow? What do you want to say?
Well, there are some of the third-party sites that may have legitimate Winkler knives for sale. And I don't know if I'm not supposed to use their names or not, but there's...
As far as I care, you can.
Well,
yeah.
For example, eBay is a place that you can go and you search Winkler knives, and some things that come up are legitimate where somebody has bought a piece, they want to sell it for whatever reason, and here's a deal, maybe you can get one. Nothing wrong with that, and we don't have any problems with that. As far as we have had one distributor who sell to other dealers in small quantities, because we do not set up new dealers now, and we have made sure that they have eliminated sales to dealers that do third-party sales through Amazon or there's a number of sites like that, Etsy and stuff. And so that brings up another point that I'm going to touch on. So some of them are legitimate. A lot of them are not, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. Do you ever have any questions whether an offering on one of these sites is legitimate? If you will email info@winklernifes.com, we will take a look at it, I guarantee, and verify whether it's legitimate or not. Over the past year especially, we've been hit with a tremendous number of forgeries of Winkler knives.
I was going to get to that. Yeah,
they're coming out of China, they're coming out of Ukraine, and they're coming out of other foreign countries, where they're actually copying our designs, calling them Winkler knives, or calling them the same as Winkler knives. There's a lot of ways, like playing whack-a-mole when you're trying to pinpoint, and they pop up here and you hit them and they go down there. So we have a new service through a company that scans all these listings on the third-party sites, the fraudulent websites, and sellers that are selling Winkler knives, they're saying, that aren't real. So one thing to watch out for, if you see like a Winkler knives belt knife for $59.99 and they say they've got 20 of them on hand, that's not legitimate. That's forgery. 100%. And we're stopping all that we can. I think I looked today, and so far they had shut down like 780 different postings of fraudulent and Winkler knife pieces around the world, and there's more out there. So, that's something to watch out for. Be suspicious of deals that seem too good to be true, and then also be suspicious if it's a seller that seems a little, and not to hit on international sales, but most of them are not coming through the U.S. markets, the regular U.S. markets. Our regular dealers are aware of this, and they are selling legitimate products. Somebody that just be aware, and any suspicions you or any of your people might have, don't hesitate to have us verify it for you, because there are telltale signs that I can tell, on what is like they even They even have forgeries of our inspection card with our inspector's signature on it. And so watch for that. There are touch mark variances, wood grain variances, a drain hole in the sheath because the sheath they copied for a while had a drain hole in it. We haven't done those for many years. That's a telltale sign. So don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll verify if it's legitimate or not.
And you do have a service, I know you shared with me earlier, you do have a service that is actively looking every day to try their best to shut those down.
Every single day, and so far, and I looked at the economic impact today, and it was like $690,000 that they have stopped, and the average selling price of the products they stopped was $59. So if you think about that, if it had been at the real price, you can multiply that times 5 at least. And so it is a large economic impact. And I can't tell you that it's really damaged our sales, but we have to be very careful about protecting our brand because it could come back and be a very big impact in what we are doing. And so we're very strict about that sort of thing.
Yeah. So just to summarize then, if you see something that looks suspicious, email Daniel and his team at info@winklernifes.com.
That's right, yes.
And also on those third-party sites, there might be a few left that are legitimate, but for the most part, he does not allow that to go directly to those.
That's true. So if you see something on a third-party site and you have any question at all about its legitimacy, let us know, and I'll let you know, if it is or if it isn't. And usually, there's very few I can't tell based on the telltale signs from the links that are attached to these sites.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that puts that to bed for you. I hope, at least, and hopefully that helps the customers out for a while. The next question I had written down, Daniel, is give me 2 things that you would like for your customers to know about Winkler or Winkler Knives or whatever the legacy that they probably don't know right now.
Well, one thing that a lot of them don't know is, yes, we are a manufacturer, but we still have a tremendous amount of handwork involved. That in our manufacturing processes, the things that we have changed that I used to do when I was a one-of-a-kind bladesmith maker, we eliminate safety hazards, or we make changes to improve overall product quality. For example, back in the day when I was doing some stock removal, we would bandsaw out the blade blanks or bandsaw out the handles. And I could take handles, I could stack them, 5 thicknesses thick and bandsaw 5 handles at a time. And it's a pretty efficient way to cut out the handles. But of the 7 times I've had stitches, 4 of them have been from bandsaw. And so eliminating that by using now a CO2 laser for cutting out the wooden handles or a CNC router for cutting out the synthetic handles, we have not taken anything away from the overall quality. We've improved the overall quality and consistency.
I was going to say,
but we've also made the process
as good, if not better. Yes.
Yeah. We've also made those operations much safer for our employees. Same thing with cutting out blade blanks. Now we have a water jet, and we lay out full sheets of steel with the blade blanks on them. It's much more efficient, but it's also safer than the hand grinding and hand cutting of knife production the way that I used to do it. And so that's one of the things is never feel like that we have made changes by taking advantage of modern technology that is in anywhere detrimental to the overall performance or quality of our knives. We don't do that at all. There's things we could do that we won't do that make it faster, but it doesn't make it better. And so that's one of the things. The second thing, there are some processes such as blade geometry and heat treating that are so crucial to overall performance that we do it in a way that is much more time consuming, but there are reasons that make it legitimate. All of Winkler Knives products are completely ground 100% to shape, before the heat treating takes place, where all other manufacturers I'm aware of, and I don't know them all, but they generally heat treat the blanks and then grind the bevels. For me, in my testing and research on getting the best performance as possible, I get a much better performance level and lifespan of the knife blade when we do our grinding prior to heat treating. Now, we lose more blades because of that, because when you're heating and cooling steel, there's warpage that happens because hot rolled steel and steels are rolled in mills. They build up stresses in the steel. When you heat them up, the stress relaxes, and maybe it relaxes into a warp. Some we can fix, some we can't. So we cold more blades than most do as far as percentage goes. But we check every single one of them for that. And but the advances in the performance are worth the loss that we have. And so that's another thing that people may not know, that we put the effort into our heat treating to get the best performance possible from the steels we're using. We also do a lot of research. I do a lot of testing on different steels to assure that we are getting the best performance and lifespan from what we're making. We're making knives that should be a lifetime investment, not use it for a few years and then get a new one.
Yeah. I remember you saying one time when you were referring to your knives as, you can't afford to have a failure when you're sending a knife into harm's way. If some soldier has got his life on the line, you want to do everything you can possibly do to put the best tool you can in his hand.
Well, bringing that up, that is exactly why Karen and I went into a manufacturing business. Was we were asked by some military teams to help them with some equipment. Initially, we were just going to work on design development, contract out the manufacturing to other manufacturers that were more set up for the numbers that they needed, or contracting out different operations such as blade grinding or handle production or whatever. But what I found out was other manufacturers have their way of doing things, and I know for me and our steels and our designs what it takes to get the most out of it, and we will not cut corners in any way to produce that. And I couldn't necessarily tell a contractor how they do their job in the most part. So we decided if we're going to do it, we're going to do it the way we know is right for us. And that's why we do everything in-house except some of the sheath designs.
And I remember you saying that to me, Daniel, when there was no lights, no camera. It was just you and I, and you could see the pride in your eyes. And it was almost like it was your way of serving. It's your way of serving them.
Well, and thank you.
Yeah,
it is.
And it's definitely genuine. So,
and really, and most people, something else, if we develop a knife and a steel and a geometry that works well for professionals that literally have to rely on their equipment, it translates pretty well to a hunter that's going to go out and deer hunt next weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people get the benefit of the research and the development that we do for professionals, even if they may not be a professional user, but they need to rely on their equipment. Hey, we've done what we can to make sure it performs for you.
Okay. That's awesome stuff, Daniel. Awesome. The next question I had for you, brother, was, is there any new products that are on the horizon? Now, you mentioned that new product where you're kind of bringing together the camp knife and the belt knife. Is there any others that you want your fans or your customers to know about?
It's camp knife and field knife, the bigger pieces.
Knife and field knife.
The belt knife's still available.
Okay.
And we don't want to lose that. That's been number one seller for a long time.
Yeah.
Come on.
We'll cut that out. We'll cut that out.
But anyway, yes, back when we started getting so overwhelmed with orders, at that time, I had developed a couple of products that we were cutting out of the waste in our water jet, called the pick and the screwdriver pick. And so what I did with them, when we were cutting out axes that were the correct thickness, in the waste areas between the handles, we would lay out these small products to cut them out to avoid wasting steel. And it was kind of a way to have a new product that had no material costs involved with it, because it was something that's going to be thrown away otherwise, or recycled. We don't throw away, we recycle the steel. And so we were making those, and they became so popular, we had to cut full sheet runs out of it on the water jet, which all of a sudden now this product that was zero cost of materials in our costing to keep the price reasonable for the consumer, it was a very low margin piece to the point of almost being a money losing piece. So when we got behind on orders, we couldn't really justify the time on that kind of product to take up our machine time. When we were getting 4 months out on knives that people really needed and used, we kind of dropped the pick and the screwdriver pick. Well, apparently the general public that likes our stuff didn't care for that. They wanted the picks, they wanted the screwdrivers. And so we've been working really hard for the past year and a half to figure out a way we could actually make those again and offer them to the public, and because it became such a sought after and popular product. In fact, on the secondary market, picks that the most extreme example I think I've ever seen was a pick that we sold for $85, brought $1,200 on the secondary market because they're no longer available. I think they regularly now sell them for the $350 range when people that have them want to turn them over to a new owner.
I think you're
well.
Right.
When we do introduce those, and we're working right now on being able to do that, they're probably going to be a little more expensive. But we do want to have them available, and it's not because we want to get back into that market so much, but we want to satisfy our customers that miss that product. They found it to be an important piece of their kit and their gear, and we want to accommodate that. So you keep your eyes open for that in the future too. I don't know exactly how it's going to work on the sales. I hope to be able to open them up and have dealer sales and everything, but until we see what we can do and the time and the materials that it takes to actually produce these, then we'll make the determination on how the marketing is going to go.
Roger that. Well, this is a question that we get a lot in the shop. Is do you have any plans to bring back rubber as a handle option?
Okay, rubber was one of the first handles when we started manufacturing. Quite frankly, rubber was the handle material for the first knife we did as a production model knife for naval special warfare. We use a recycled rubber. It's actually manufactured. I started off using rubber years ago for cutting competition knives, and I would buy horse stall mats and cut them out. A lot of waste of material there. So I researched out and I found a company that made cutting mats actually for the sailing industry, where they cut out the patterns on sails and kites and that sort of thing. It worked really good. It's recycled rubber from tires, and we were able to cut it out and use that. There are problems associated with that kind of rubber. The main problem is it's a flexible material, and so it will lift with use at the corners of the handles. And so that was a downturn. People did not like their knife handle releasing from the tang. It's not like it's going to completely come off unless you really force it, but they didn't want their corners lifted and all that. And I'd say, well, you got to take a little super glue and glue it and hold it until it dries, wipe the super glue off. But anyway, so there are still professionals out in the field that benefit from a rubber handle. And so we have, I think we have 2 knife models and maybe 2 axe models that we still offer with rubber handles. I'd have to go back and look at that, especially on the axes, because quite frankly, I don't take the orders anymore. And I have other people that we determine what handles are available with what models. And I have my input in, but I kind of let other people make the final determinations on that based on histories. And I don't have access. I have access to it, but I don't get into that so much. But anyway, the belt knife and the crusher belt, you can order those with a rubber handle, because that is the model closest resembling what we did for the Navy. And so if somebody needs a knife for that particular purpose, they have the option for that. When we were trying to put rubber on everything, it became a problem not only because of a couple of 3 or 4 reasons. One was the problems with the material releasing. Recycled rubber will also absorb water in prolonged conditions, and that would cause it to release more. And so you still have to treat it like you would any other natural handle material, because it has some porosity to it. But one of the things when they manufacture these cutting mats, the manufacturing processes are not such that you get 100% usable material. So for every 100 handles we cut out, we throw away 35 of them because they have voids in the rubber. We have to check each one. And frequently you don't know that until you're shaping the handle. Then you got to remove the handle, put a new one on it. So it was very ineffective cost-wise. Mm-hmm. And by evaluating that and the actual needs, not wants, of the customer base, we limited it to axes and knives that would fulfill most needs. And that way we don't have to have so much waste, which is not only costly, but it's not very environmentally friendly. We also now don't have to have storage for handles because, right now we'll cut handles this week that we won't put on knives for 3 months because we have to prep for the backlog that we have. Mm-hmm. And anytime you have another handle material, now you have to have another storage space for it. And it gets pretty overwhelming when you have as many handle choices and model differences that we have. And so that's why rubber is very limited. It's not because it's got anything negative about it other than the problems with the glue not adhering completely. And I've tried a lot of glues. If anybody's got any ideas of a glue that'll glue flexible rubber without releasing, let me know.
Right.
But I've tried a lot of different ones. But so we'll have some rubber right on, but it's going to be limited.
Right. So pretty much the answer to that would be no then. So
answer to that is
other
no.
than the products that you previously
right.
mentioned.
Now, if we develop a new such combat knife that would benefit from a grippier texture in wet, maybe so. I did a test on rubber inserts on handles for a dagger we did for the GBRS group, mm-hmm. and that worked out well. So we might be able to do some rubber inserts without having the kind of problems that we have for the full rubber handles because it eliminates the lifting of the corners, and it provides a little extra grip. So there's things we may do in the future.
A little grippy, yeah, okay. Next question. Do you have any plans to bring back serrations?
Serrations are much like rubber. We limit it to certain models. Like you can order the belt knife with serrations. The biggest problem with that is personally I've never been a big fan of serrations. We did serrations on several models. In fact, that first Navy model that we did, the serrations, they didn't cut worth a darn. I mean, they were awful. We developed a way to cut serrations that do work. But it is an extremely time-consuming operation because every single serration is cut by hand one at a time. And so we eliminated serrations on a lot of models because we needed to not be so bogged down with the machines on a feature that may not really be advantageous to every single model that we do. So you can still order serrations, I believe, on the belt knife and the crusher belt. I'd have to check that and make sure.
And they're tough to sharpen.
They're really tough to sharpen. But, if I could ever find a way to do them in a more efficient manner, and there are probably ways to do that, we might open it up a little bit more. But until that, I'm not going to do serrations. And I've got knives with serrations I've gotten from other places. And they cut okay, but not great. They're real good on fiber, and mm-hmm. so if you're going to be cutting a lot of rope and stuff, it might be it might be advantageous to have the serrations. Get the belt knife, the crusher belt, order it with serrations, and you're covered. We also put serrations on the back of the utility crusher. That's different. It doesn't take up any of your cutting edge. That one right there, Kevin. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take up any space on your cutting edge, but it's in the spine, and they're still relatively effective. So that model, as long as we continue producing that model, which is probably be for a while, the utility crusher, that one is available with serrations on it, and it was designed to have serrations from the original design. So we'll continue doing that.
Roger that. This is This is I think I probably know the answer to this one, but the public wants to know, so I'm going to ask it. We've kind of well established some of your processes, especially when it comes to heat treat, in maintaining the quality of your products. But some folks want to know, do you have any plans, or would you ever work with a different material, different steel? For example, the new MagnaCut. MagnaCut, yeah.
I haven't tested the MagnaCut. Right now, we're using probably 98% of all of our knives and axes, 80 CRV2. And that's not because it's cheap. It's not as expensive as some, and it's a lot more expensive than others that will make functional knives. I've done a lot of testing and destruction testing on knives and axes for shock resistance, wear resistance, which edge holding, sharpenability, and quite frankly, until I find something that across the board is better than the 80 CRV2, I won't be changing. But if something comes up that we can change and get a better performing knife, perhaps we will. I don't have anything against some of the PM steels, the particle metallurgy. They're great steels. They work really well. But when you start weighing the differences, not just the cost, but the performance across the board from wear resistance, strength factor, lateral strength, and sharpenability, it's, again, I just haven't personally found the steels that we can keep total control under here in our shop. For example, the CPM 3V that we use for one Navy project steel and that we've done some limited runs on. Great steel. I would say it performs as well as the as the 80 CRV2, or even maybe a little better on the lateral strength factors, and maybe a little better in the edge.
For us laymen, tell me what lateral strength would be.
How much pressure you can put on that blade without it bending or breaking.
There you go. Okay. That's
and then
good
the
enough. Wear
resistance factor on the CPM 3V is very good. That's how long it holds the edge. The drawback with that is the sharpenability. It is really more difficult to sharpen in the field than the 80 CRV2, and that's an important factor for most of our customers to be able to maintain it without elaborate equipment. And then also heat treating on a lot of these designer steels, which are very good, have very specific ramping requirements to get the most out of the heat treating of the steel. With our salt pot systems we use here, we can't do that. I have to use a contractor to do the heat treating. And there are a lot of really good heat treating contractors out there, but unfortunately I'm pretty much a control freak, and I like having things under my control, and I can't look at the blades and tell if they're done correctly or not. We have testing methods that we put every single knife blade through here to assure it's within a range that is acceptable. And I can do that with contracted, but I don't know exactly how they come about it. And so I prefer using steels we can keep our total control over. And I can do that with the 80 CRV too.
Yeah.
And there's other steels I could do that with. And I'll have to look at the MagnaCut, because you're not the first person that's asked about that. I just need to look at the chemical formula for that, see the heat treating procedures, and see if it's something that we would even consider giving a test to. But I'm not above trying it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You said I'm a control freak, and I don't know if that's true or not, Daniel. I think you just very passionate about your product. You care what goes out that door, and I think that is what is one of your unique value scenarios, to use some of my words on myself, I guess. So is there any plans for a Winkler folder in the future?
Not the near future.
I got you.
There are reasons for that, and we've done a few. We did the F1, the F1B. We got some examples of them up here. We did the a folding knife design for Sig Sauer, and then we did the F3. That's the F3 that you're holding there. I like it. I carry folders. I use them on a daily basis. Here's the problem. Here's why we don't make them anymore. I don't have the equipment to do the CNC work on the liners and the blade pivots to get them to where they work like they're supposed to. So again, had to contract that out. Now, when we were contracting those operations out, we had to contract for like 350 to 500 pieces to make it worth the contractor setting up their machines to do it. I noticed a significant difference in the first 100 and the last 100 in how everything fit together. And we were having struggles to keep the actions operating properly. And so Karen and I decided, listen, if we're going to have these struggles with that kind of product until we decide we want to expand into the equipment to, again, do it all ourselves, we're just going to get out of the folder market. There's a lot of great folder makers out there that do a wonderful job with it. I'm happy to use their product when I want a folding knife. Right now, I carry one that I designed for Boker knives probably 15 years ago. It kind of sat on the shelf for several years. They ended up producing a limited run. I was able to get about half the run. We sold them through the website. I kept a few for myself, and I carry those now. Although I didn't make it, it's actually made for Boker by Fox and out of Italy. Well done, good actions, better than what I could make. And so until I can make them as good as Fox and some of the others, Hinder or any of the other great folder makers, Emerson, some of these guys that are good friends of mine, we're not going to get into the folder market.
Okay. I think that's fair enough answer to that then. Any new collaborations in the near future?
Well, again, these are all special projects that we do, and we're limited in how many we can come up with. We're going to do one with Kevin Estella, who is a survival expert, works with Fieldcraft Survival. And I constantly work with some of the military units that may end up being collaborations and may end up being specific for what those guys need. They never get out to the public. It just kind of depends on where it comes from. Generally speaking, I'm pretty selective in what we do now. We're not going to make a knife that we're not comfortable with having. If our partner chooses to put it in our product line, it's got to flow with our product line. We've made some stuff in the past that doesn't really flow well with the Winkler designs we've done. We worked with Jason Knight for a few years on some Jason Knight collaborations, and Jason's a good friend of mine. I've known him since he was a kid coming to craft shows I would do down in South Carolina. And great knife maker, great designer. What we found out when we did the Knight designs is people that wanted a Knight design went to Jason Knight for it. They didn't want to come to Winkler Knives for it. No, we sold them. We limited the editions. We sold them all out, of course. But people that come to Winkler Knives want the designs that are recognizable as a Winkler knife design. People that want other influences, for the most part, are going to go to those other makers for that. So we're limited on the collaborations we do. It's not that I feel like I'm any better in designing and making than others. It's just a matter of let's stick with what we do best.
There you go. Yep. How about any plans for a Tanto?
Tanto's not Winkler. I love Tantos. I made a few, but quite frankly, that is probably not a design that's in our future. They're great. It's just not flowing with the rest of our product lines.
Yeah. Well, I think that probably answers that about as quickly and succinctly as you possibly could. Well, Daniel, that's all the questions that I have for you today. I want to thank you for being on the Table Full of Knives podcast. And not many people, Daniel, that I can sit across from and say, I truly admire them, but I truly admire you. I mean, what you've done, what you've built. We're here in the factory. We're in the Winkler factory. That's what we're filming at. Behind this wall, there is 25 people that you have provided a job to that are pridefully, I might add, building Winkler knives. And you can tell, because myself and one of my colleagues walked through the factory while we were waiting, and those guys were sighting down it and they were looking across it. I mean, you could tell that they care almost probably as much as you do about what goes out that door. And I am definitely honored to be one of your dealers, and we appreciate having you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you coming. One other thing I would like to promote for Winkler Knives a little bit, we have opened a store which is the side of it. But actually, what I think the more important part of the site is we opened a museum, and it chronicles from where I started. I have on display the very first knife I ever made. It goes through completely all the one-of-a-kind hand-forged pieces that Karen and I made for so many years, into models that we have done specifically for different military and law enforcement agencies. We've got some retired units on a display, a lot of memorabilia around. So if you're ever in the Boone area, come by and see it. I think you might enjoy it.
I would definitely agree, and it is definitely something to see. So if we'll put the address in the description for this video. Come by and see Daniel. And what's the gentleman's name that works down there?
Bruce.
Bruce. Come by and see Bruce.
Bruce is actually, he's the son of one of our managers, and he runs a store for us. He's very knowledgeable, and if there's a question he can't answer, he calls me direct, or Karen, or whoever can answer. But Bruce will take care of you.
Guys, thank you for joining us on Table Full of Knives. See you on the next one.
Thank you.